Welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. I'm sitting here at the Billion Group with Sisa Ngebulana, who's the chairman and founder of the Billion Group. And under that particular group, they have the Rebosis property fund, which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Sisa, thank you very much for the opportunity of chatting to you. I think it was a wonderfully inspirational story. Do you want to maybe just tell our readers out there just where it all started, where it started for you as a business, from humble beginnings, from your young days, and then through to how you built the company into a JSE-listed company, property fund?
Well, I think it's a very simple story. Building something from scratch, brick by brick. I think I was just lucky that I was born in an entrepreneurial family where I learned bricklaying, plastering, and at a very tender young age, because we sold bricks. And I would spend time on building sites doing this. So real estate and building and developing is in my blood system, if I want to call it that. We, when I was at university, I practiced as an estate agent and I sold homes. And part of those homes I did, most of those homes I did renovations, because the only way to sell them was to be able to convince the buyer that in fact I could change the color, I could change the bathroom tiles, I could change the kitchen look and feel. And beyond that, I did my articles. I did a law degree honors, and I did my articles, and I had a stint in trucking business, which taught me lessons about focus and what I'm good at. And I spent some time in Eskom, specializing in treasury and financial markets. I then did spec building of homes, mostly Kalami, Dainfern areas, and then I did cluster homes in Hyde Park. Lost all that money in a coal mining venture, which was another important lesson. I think 5 years after my trucking business didn't do well, I'd forgotten about this and taught me important lessons about focus.
Yeah.
Then I was back in real estate, and I think that's in my blood system. I've been in this now for the last 13 years, and that's where the vision of Billion Group was really born again and refocused into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And from there I started, besides the clusters, Hyde Park and Bryanston, I started looking at commercial buildings. Insurance companies were getting out of CBDs at the time. I then bought a lot of properties. We would pick up properties back then from anything between 15 and 18% yields, and I had one good break of buying a big property at 25% yields, and that became my breakthrough in many ways.
Fantastic.
And beyond that, I looked from 2004 doing research in areas which were undersupplied from a retail perspective, and we kicked off with our development of Nansana City, which was a 37,000 square meter GLA in Nansana Regional Dominance Center. So we're still under our banner even today under Rebosis, and I did Hemingway's thereafter, which was 74,000 square meter GLA in East London, and we've gone from strength to strength. We listed Rebosis. What I did was to take all the assets that were income producing, put them under a fund, which was an internal fund called Rebosis in 2010, and then then thereafter I listed that in the JSE, which was the largest IPO. We raised about over 2 billion, which was oversubscribed, but we needed 1.6 billion. We had 3.6 billion of assets we're listing, which were formerly billion assets. And beyond that, we've grown that fund to date to about 6.5 billion.
Wow.
We've had good returns. In the last year, we've had 31% total return,
Mm-hmm.
which is made up of 9% income return and capital return of the balance.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at delivering similar results.
Fantastic.
Going forward.
Talk a little bit about your African expansion.
Yeah, so under Billion remains a developer, and we have about, in the next 10 years, about 35 billion worth of developments underway.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, under construction is just close to 5 billion, with mostly 3 big regional shopping centers, which is Forest Hill in Pretoria on the corner of R55 and N14, on the N2 in Bay West, which will be the biggest mall in the Eastern Cape, and in Port Elizabeth, being the fifth biggest city in our country. Bay West, with a big mixed-use precinct of about 1.6 million square meters, through to Mthatha, about 60,000 square meter GLA center, which we also started about 2 months ago, which is underway. And we also busy with Billion International in the African continent, in our own continent, with about 4 different countries. In the east with Uganda, but mostly focused on the fast-growing economies on the west coast, where we have, which are driven by oil in the main, which is Nigeria, Ghana, and Angola. So we have about 12 different shopping centers underway there. Total value of about $2 billion, and we mostly have venture capital or private equity from mostly out of UK and the US, out of funding those, which is all dollar based, and these are all dollar based assets.
Great. Just in closing, Sisa, give some inspirational advice to some investors out there. What would they be?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good returns to be earned in the listed space. 31% in Rebosis capital total return is quite decent. And I think investors need to be aware that these are the kind of returns you get in an environment in the listed space, which is highly regulated with adherence to King 3 codes, right, and totally transparent, independent boards, and totally accountable and transparent. And I think investors ought to be aware of that. If you look at Rebosis, it's I'd say it's one of the funds that's got the best fundamentals. Long-term leases. When we listed, we had about 38% exposure to government. We've since bought more properties. If you're exposed to government, I know there's been some noises around government, but they remain a good payer. They remain a stable tenant, because if you're not paid by government, if they run out of money, then if government runs out of money, the country goes down. It's a best risk, a sovereign risk. Yeah. So we choose national government as against the provincial governments, and we've since bought more properties, and our income is about 50% to government. But in the long term, we want more exposure to retail under Rebosis. That's why Billion Group assets that are under development, Rebosis has a first right of refusal, and at some point, as and when Billion sells those assets, they have the obligation to first offer them to Rebosis. And hence, in the medium to long term, Rebosis will be a retail-focused fund. Specialized funds, they trade at premiums, and we believe that that's where Rebosis should be positioned from a retail perspective. African Fund, our medium to long-term objective is also to put that into a fund, which we might reverse into the JSE, and Rebosis will be a big participant of that. And the kind of returns you get on our continent are quite huge. If we're delivering a total return of 31% in South Africa, you can bet for higher returns in the rest of the continent.
Fantastic. Well, I certainly back that. I think it's pretty exciting, Sisa, and thank you very much for the opportunity of having the chat. I think we need to talk and get you up on the stage to inspire a lot of our investors out there, because you built a business really from scratch. So thank you once again for that opportunity.
Awesome, thanks.